Thank you for tuning in to another episode of my Veterans to Success podcast. You probably know by now, my mission is to help 1 million veterans and entrepreneur business owners achieve the dreams, goals, and aspirations they deserve. That is why I created the Veterans to Success podcast, because I get to interview guys, men and women, who want to share their fascinating stories with you about their time before, during and after their time in the military, so you can benefit and overcome your challenges. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be mesmerized, astounded, and entertained. Hello and welcome to another edition of Veterans to Success, the podcast where I get to speak to seemingly ordinary people who have extraordinary stories. And today I've got with me Roy Lewis, Sgt Roy Lewis of International Leadership. Hello, Roy. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, Joe. I hope that you are. Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, my pleasure, mate. So you know the score, you know the drill. We've chatted what we're going to talk about, and it's a slow reveal. No big introduction, no fanfare for the common man or woman, as I've said. We just dive straight in. And what I'd like to do is take me back to your childhood, what you were doing as a child before the army.
Oh boy, I tell you that's interesting. I tell a lot of people my childhood was very simple. I did play sports, and I did play football, and I played basketball and even baseball. But however, I grew up in a sports town, but I knew very earlier on, I wasn't that type of guy. I wasn't going to go for a scholarship or be a pro player. I just played for fun. It was just but however, I was into the music. I was really into music, and I was into theater. And my mother didn't fall off her chair when I told her I wanted to go to college for music. So she was just concerned. She just said, "Hey, as long as you're out of here, you're in college, I don't care." So that worked for me. I did. I'm the oldest of 6 children. So my younger brother, he got a full ride to university for basketball, and he did very, very well. But me, it was never my thing. But I grew up in a small town called Highland Falls. Nobody's never heard of it. But however, if your listeners have heard of the famous West Point Military Academy in
Yeah.
America, that's where my parents worked. Both my parents worked at the academy. And that was my impression of the military. To be honest with you, didn't. I had no aspirations for the military whatsoever.
So that's where the tone of voice was screaming, really, wasn't it?
Well, we don't call it screaming. We call it positive reinforcement. I know that now.
Okay,
Yeah. But like I said, I remember went to pick my dad up from work, and I remember the busload of freshmen came in, and they got off the bus, and these upperclassmen just came out of nowhere, and they started yelling at these kids, and they were just shaking in their boots, man. And I'm sitting here going like, who in the world would sign up for this? This is crazy. So I turned my back on the military, but I went to school for 2 years in Massachusetts, and I studied music. I married my college sweetheart, and after graduation, we just did 2 years, and I went to New York City to try to, get my fame and all of that.
Yeah.
And things didn't work out. They didn't work out. But however, I remember I had no hard professional skills whatsoever. So I remember looking at my precious wife. I said, "Well, let me go check this military thing out and see what it's all about." And next, Joe, I was on a bus headed to basic training. I was like, oh my gosh, I thought I had signed my life away. I thought it was over for me. I'm like, what am I doing? And even the extra part of that story is that in the American military, you can sign up with your mate. So both of you can go together. It's called a buddy system.
Right,
Well,
okay.
yeah, so my mate, he was going to go with me, but he backed out the last minute. And I was so mad at him. I was so angry at him. So I had to go by myself. And I remember sitting out there early, 0500, 5 o'clock in the morning, looking up at the stars, going like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And not knowing that this was the best decision of my life. You know, I
And
thought it
how old
was.
were you at this time?
I I'm for training purposes. I don't know how it is where you're from, but most of the soldiers go in around 17 or 18.
Yeah,
I was
right.
22. I was 22. So they called, there was a few 20-year-olds in our company. So they called us the old guys.
Yeah.
But went to basic, graduated, and actually I started out being a supply guy. That was my initial job. I started doing being supply, and I my first duty station was in El Paso, Texas. So I did a couple of years active duty and did that whole thing, and then I eventually got out after a couple of years, and then I went in. I don't know how it works over where you're from, but the United States, we have three components. We have the active component, the National Guard, and the reserves. So I've been fortunate enough to have done all three.
Right. Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah,
so when
we
I
have so we have something similar. We have
yeah,
because I did my time. We call it regular army,
yeah,
and then we have the territorial army, which is now the reservist actually.
yeah, right,
Yeah, so we don't have the strands of reservists and National Guard. We have reservists now
yeah.
or regs.
Yeah, because the National Guard just serves a purpose as for the states. Each state has a that's really pretty much their militia. They share,
Right.
so the governor has a chance if there's a state emergency, he has a militia available to them if they have to use one. That's
Got
the
you.
only difference like that.
Right.
But I did that, and then I went over to I got bored to death. I met this, I cannot remember this guy's name, but I was out there at the field training one day, and he says, "Hey, we're looking for drill instructors, and would you be interested?" And I'm like, at this time, Joe, I'm 40 years old, and I'm in good shape. But I remember going, "Oh my gosh!" So I went to a good friend of mine at the gym, and I asked her. She's a trainer, and I gave, I gave her all the qualifications, and she said, "Oh, I can get you in shape." And Sherry, if you're listening, I love you. You're great. And she put me through the ringer, and I had to run faster. I had to jump faster. I had to do that. But long story short, I graduated drill sergeant school at age 40.
Age
And
40. Wow,
age
that's
40.
going
And
some.
yeah, and I have to admit, Joe, I would have done it sooner. It's hard work, and I believe it's the same thing for your trainers over there as well. Training, anybody to tell you that training is the hardest thing because you're the first one up, you're the last one to go to bed. You have to prep for the next day. There's always training.
Yeah,
So
and you got to be if so long as you're one step ahead of the students, then you're good to go, aren't you?
yeah, it'll wear you out. And but however, I had a blast. And I guess the part for me was just watching these young men and women get off the bus like I did a long time ago, and they were just terrified. They had the same look I had. They get off the bus and they don't know what they're doing. And after 10 weeks, they are functioning like a full functional team.
Yeah.
They don't know each other. It's wonderful.
And what's going on with your wife? How's she adjusting to the military life? Because I mean, you're probably dashing around, getting up early,
Well, she's a
getting
good Army
on
wife. We call them, you talk to any soldiers that have good military wives, they are the backbone of the family.
yeah,
When I'm out there training, she keeps everything together. Even when I went to over in the Middle East, I would call back and say, "Oh, did you pay the car insurance?" And she wouldn't even, she would just cut me off and say, "I got this," So I have a nickname for her. I call her the commander. She's the commander. So
and it's good when you've got that support, isn't it? Because that really
yeah,
makes life a lot easier. Yeah,
yeah. Even when the children, we have two children, she took care of all that stuff, and it was a relax on my mind because any soldier will tell you, when you have a family, you go off and you do the mission. You don't want to be thinking about that stuff when you're out there in the field because your job is just to execute and function, just stay alert so you can, you have your faculties because you start thinking about, and I've seen that happen before. I've seen certain soldiers get into, they may have some unfinished business at home and stuff, and they're just worried and stuff, and they can't focus on the mission.
yeah. And how were your children affected by your military career
Oh, that's so funny
in a
though.
positive
My
way?
son, That's a great question because I have a son that is currently serving active duty, and he is a officer.
All
And
right, okay.
yeah, and funny thing, Joe, I'm glad you asked that because he was my problem child. He was the one that
Was
gave
he?
me. Yeah, he was a tough cookie. He got in trouble, hanging out, getting in trouble. So let's put it this way: him and his dad, him and I had a meeting together, and we came to an understanding. He joined the military. He did like
That's one way of putting it. You came to an understanding. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We had a meeting. He did 1 year of school. Well, I have to admit, he's a very handsome young man. He's got
Right.
the he was a ladies' man in high school, and he just thought that was going to last forever.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
come in and bring him some reality to that. But it was so funny though, Joe. He came in as an enlisted guy first, and I remember the Army had a program where they were going to take guys that made sergeant to go to become a warrant officer. So the difference between an officer and a warrant officers are just subject matter experts of their field.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, they're actually officers, but they're technical. So I remember I probably badgered him for a whole year to put his paperwork in. And I was at the gym and he called me one night. He says, "Oh, I got picked up, I got picked up." And then I said, "Okay." And he says to me, he says, "Well, you don't seem too excited about it." I said, "I was waiting on you, guy. I'm waiting on you."
Oh,
So
good.
and I think in 1997, I went down and I had the wonderful opportunity to pin his bars on.
Wow, how unusual is that? Because
Yeah, that was
we
cool.
know the difference between
Yeah,
rank and the streams. So
yeah.
that's pretty cool that to pin the bars on your son.
And
Yeah.
it was when I gave him his first salute. I gave him a sergeant major coin, and I whispered in his ear. He was at the position of attention, and I said, "Okay, military, you outrank me." I said, "But genetically, I can still bring it, sir." And he
Yeah.
goes, "Oh," he goes, Dad, you don't have to say that." I said, "No, no. When you see Forrest Gump, he says Lieutenant Dan through the whole movie. I give respect to you." So he's right now, he's stationed in Vincenza, Italy as we speak.
Ah, right, okay. How did he wing that one?
Yeah, well, it's so funny though. All the problems that he gave me, he qualified, and it is so ironic. He qualified for military intelligence. That's
Which some may say is a contradiction in terms.
yeah,
Uh,
it's a contradiction in terms. But I said, "What?" And he got a bonus for it. So I said, and we now we can talk about it because he's 37 now. We
yeah,
talk like men, but I just told him, I said, it's so ironic. I said, "Look how I've been telling you since you were 5 years old. You're smart. You're smart." And
yeah.
that just confirmed it.
Oh, well, that's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about your other child? What was
My
going on?
daughter, I have a daughter. She's a daddy's girl, but in our family, we got a lot of productive people. She married. It's funny though. It's true. They say uh, daughters will marry husbands like their fathers or whatever. My son-in-law, he's very, very enterprising.
Right,
He
okay.
he owns his own business. He owns a martial arts academy. He owns not
Mm.
one, not two, but three schools in
Wow.
Oklahoma City, and he runs his business. He's a businessman, and I'm real proud of her. They've got three girls. Three. I've got total. My son has three kids with his wife, and my daughter has three daughters. So we have an own army. I told my son-in-law, "You got three girls. You got to stay in shape." I said, "Just teach my young girls how to fight. That's all I want you to do."
Wow. That's
But
brilliant.
they're all doing well. Everybody's doing really well. It's funny though, because I'm the patriarch of the family. So when they see me coming, I'm going to ask who, what, when, where, why. So
Yeah,
they
yeah,
like
yeah,
rats on the ship. They start running for me. So I'm
yeah.
doing a quality check.
And of course, the one on the end, how? Yeah, I get that. Yeah, who, what, when,
Yeah,
where, how? Yeah. So, you know, your career uh, has lasted a little bit longer than a
yeah.
normal service. How did you manage that? And what was going on for you to move between the active service, the National Guard, and then reserves.
Well, anyone would tell you, and it's true for, I think it's true for the British forces as well. The military has changed. I mean, nowadays, soldiers, you are your own career manager, and the opportunities are out there. You just have to go get them. Anybody will tell you that you're not going to hold your hand. If you qualify for something, I always tell my soldiers that, hey, go to school, take classes, because first of all, the military pays for it. Doesn't cost you a dime.
Yeah,
So a lot of these young kids get out there, instead of playing video games and just watching TV, take advantage of all these classes, all these trainings, because you get promoted. So through my entire career, I started active duty, and then I went to school. I was on active duty as well. I went to school at night, and that was one of the reasons why I left the active component. Then I joined the National Guard component, where I also kind of went on to school, got some more my military education benefits, and then I joined the reserve. It was just kind of a natural progression because there were so many opportunities. Now, from the military side, there were schools available. I kept getting promoted. So a lot of we have what we call trading NCOs, non-commissioned officers. They'll tell you,
yeah,
hey, you're eligible for this. You're eligible for this. So I just took advantage of it. I said, sure, I'll go. And I kept getting promoted, and I realized that was the secret right there. And it really, it's kind of true for today. Yeah, I think successful people, the people that I've seen that are successful, are the people that are productive.
yeah.
The people that sit back and take advantage of those
I-
opportunities.
and it's interesting you say that because I remember, if there was a course going that I could go on to further my education practically or theoretically,
Yeah,
I'd always get my hand up straight away and like physical training instructor, combat engineer, class one,
yeah,
plumber, pipe fitter.
yeah,
And we even had the situation where we were going on adventure training and I'd done some windsurfing and I was reasonably good because a guy who was a world record holder trained me,
wow,
taught me,
okay,
right? Stevie, lovely fella. And he said, right, we need a windsurfing instructor for our adventure training. You're going on a course. So I went on that. And you know what? You, it's all about building skills, isn't it? Because
yeah,
while I only use that in the military a couple of times to teach soldiers, now I can use it to teach my sons.
yeah,
And because I think that as you go on in life, even the bad stuff,
yeah,
as long as you learn a lesson from the bad stuff, then you can pass it
yeah,
on to either your own children or your friends or your friends' children,
yeah.
or you just pass it on, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, and that's so true, Joe, because it develops what I call skill sets. It gives you a sense of muscle memory in a way that you develop a sense of what it is to work for something, and you get the rewarded for it. Now, you may not use those skill sets, but however, the application of working towards something, developing, being pushed to something, that's how we are as human beings, believe it or not.
Yeah, yeah,
People don't realize that as human beings, we are made to create, to do things, to be productive. And as a matter of fact, I get really scared when I see an individual that's kind of like not doing anything, that's kind of depressed, and you've seen people that are very, very wealthy that have gotten to the point where they're not doing anything, they get depressed. And I'm like, how can you get depressed? You're a millionaire. How can you ever get depressed? That's impossible. But it does happen.
yeah.
It does.
Well, and because it's not about the money, is it? It's about the
It's not
actual.
about the money. It's never about the money.
No, and that's why I cannot see. I don't know about you, Roy, but I cannot see me retiring
Yeah. Yeah,
because
and retirement, and to kind of put a spin on it for your listeners here, is retirement just means different things for different people.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like retirement for some people is like sitting in a chair and doing nothing. That's what I was always told, when I was in the military. Hey, get out, you go fishing, you relax. Well, I did that for about a month, and it drove me nuts. So now that's why I've committed myself. I'm on the road now as a public speaker. I'm going out. Like I told you before the show came on, I volunteer once a week at a high school, talk to
yeah, yeah,
teenagers. So it's always about being productive. Why? It's because the way that we're made that way,
yeah,
and it keeps you healthy. It keeps
yeah.
you sane, it's good
And
health.
it's great because what I do, and we share a lot of similar values and similar skills.
Mhm.
I go into schools teaching about how finance works,
Yeah.
because I'm a professional financial advisor, but I'm an ambassador for the Personal Finance Society, and we've got 8 modules, right? And we go and
Mhm.
teach kids about money because you know what? I wish someone had taught me because I
Yeah.
at school and I knew nothing. I knew nothing about money. So we teach about loans, mortgages,
Yeah.
scams, how to avoid scams, how to
Yeah.
read pay slip, right?
Yeah.
And
I
stuff
was
like
never
that.
taught any of that. I was never taught any of that. And when I started educating myself, I was like, oh, this is how this works.
Yeah,
And knowledge is a wonderful thing. I think people are scared of it for some reason, but it's healthy. It's healthy mentality to be able to just wake up and have something to do. Because really, to be honest with you, I'm really nervous because the new intervention of AI, artificial intelligence, that is, you know, uh, threatening people, not threatening people, but just tempting people to be lazy. You not to
yeah,
use, because and I use AI sometimes, but I pull back from the table and I say, I want my own thoughts. I want to use
yeah.
my own creativity. I like the feeling, like you just said a minute ago, I like that feeling of working, grinding something out, and then all of a sudden I have the results and I did the work to get it. And
Mm,
to be honest with you, Joe, I really believe that cannot be automated. That's
no,
just it can never be. I don't care if they make super computers. Where that's the way we're cut from as human beings.
yeah. Well, I share your views on that. I mean, I remember when the robot advice, financial advice, that came
Yeah,
out, and a lot of advisors are saying we're finished. And you know what? People like dealing with people at the end of the
yeah.
day. What a machine can't do is, and someone's going to challenge me one day and say AI can do that. Yeah, well, I don't think that machines have learned how to do empathy.
No, they don't. And I tell people, I said, really, to be honest with you, because I retired. I work in technology,
Yeah,
and I tell people it's really not artificial intelligence. They said, what are you talking about? I said, a computer does 4 things. They said, what's that? It adds, subtracts, multiplies, and divides data. That's it.
yeah,
Now, it gives the illusion that it's making decisions, but what you just said 2 seconds ago, it doesn't have empathy, it doesn't have reasoning. You tell a
no,
computer what to do, it will follow. It doesn't have the ability to go outside the programming, which is
yeah.
designed. So I tell people, I said, nah, you gotta be really careful about this because I started, some of me and my army buddies, we started laughing because we said, well, some of us that were senior leaders, like, well, if you got robotic soldiers, they don't complain that they're hungry. They don't complain that they don't get paid. They don't complain that they don't have enough sleep. It is tempting. It is tempting. However, uh, you can't beat the human element, and it's going to always be there. You can never replace it.
No, yeah, I agree there. There's many tasks that can be automated. The way we operate as humans, no, I don't think so. So
Absolutely.
I suppose you spent was it 39 years?
36
36,
years.
36
Yeah.
years.
Wow. Yeah. 36 years. I
Yeah,
mean, it's a surprise to me because I was my last duty station was in Fort Stewart, Georgia. And I just came in one day and I just thought I was going to be there forever, to be honest with you. That's how much I love the military. And me and this other sergeant major, he was like 37 years. And they just came in and said, "Hey, Sergeant Major, you guys are at the end of your careers here." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And then another thing that caught me off guard, when I'm older than the colonel, when you're older than the colonel, it's time to go.
yeah.
The colonel looks like a teenager to me, you know.
So,
And I'm like, "Sir, I got this," But
so, yeah, all right. So you just said, yeah, I'm going.
yeah.
Uh, I'm sure that was a bittersweet moment for you.
Yeah, because for me, it's been a nice journey because I realized really without coming out and saying it, I love serving. I love the military community. It gave me, when I put on I got pictures. I wish I could show everybody in my office here. I've got pictures when my first day in the Army, I'm in my uniform,
Oh, wow.
and I've got my picture of my last day in the Army.
Wow.
And I've always loved when I put on my uniform, it just did something to me. It just made
Yeah,
me proud, to be able that it wasn't about me. I felt like I was part of a bigger picture, and I like the camaraderie.
yeah,
And like for example, when we went to the Middle East, and every time we go in and out of airports, we were greeted by veterans that escorted us to the airport. Vietnam
yeah,
vets, World War II vets, and I have friends of mine, and this probably happens to you as well. People say, "You vets, you guys act like you know each other your whole
yeah,
life. What's up with that?" And I try to explain to them. I say it's kind of we all have the same rite of passage. We all
yeah,
have
yeah,
this
yeah,
common thread, and we're taught from day one that we are to watch out for each other. We watch each other's back. It's just instinctive.
yeah,
You don't
yeah.
have to think about it, and it goes that way. And a lot of I've heard civilians say they love that. They wish that was in regular society. I said, but you ask any military person, man or woman, that when they die, they're gonna remember their mother, their father, and their drill sergeant.
Yeah.
There you go.
We,
You gotta,
we got one more army number.
yeah,
That's like
right.
imprinted on my head. I
Yeah,
just
it's that
know that. Yeah,
you never forget that stuff.
yeah, yeah. I've got that. So let's rewind a little bit because I know that you served back in 2007 in Iraq and you were training Iraqi soldiers. How did that go, and what differences did you see in the way that they handle situations?
Oh yeah, it was a. I remember our colonel giving us our briefing. He said when we got in country, he just said, "Hey guys, we're going to make a plan. However, if we at the end of our year, if we accomplish just one or two things, don't be discouraged because that's a good thing." And I didn't understand that because when we were handed the reins from the other training company that was leaving, we were replacing them. It was a huge culture shock because their military style or leadership is more of a Soviet style
Yeah,
leadership, and they teach leadership from the top down. Unlike the American British forces, we teach leadership from the bottom up.
yeah,
There's always leadership at some point wherever you go. There's never an absence of leadership in the American British forces. But however, that's why you saw when the first, like, say, all the way back since Desert Storm, when there was an attack or something going, you take all the leaders out, the unit is totally confused. They don't know what to do, and it's
yeah,
kind of really messed up. And I remember my captain and we would set up like a leadership academy, and we would say, hey, these guys we notice these guys out in the field. These will make great leaders for you. We would tell the officer that, but the way that he perceived it, he was like, I don't teach another man my job. This is my job. And he would have, when they did agree to come to our leadership academy, they're very tribal. They would invite their nephew or their cousin. And I'm like, hey, you got five guys over here that would make excellent leaders, but they don't think that way.
yeah,
So it was kind of hard to do that. But I remember, and then the other epiphany that I had was at the end of my tour there. I remember standing there in Baghdad, and Baghdad's a beautiful place. The Nile River runs right through it. It's beautiful. And I remember telling this Iraqi man, I said, "Hey, my country's not perfect. It's not perfect." I said, "However, the United States, we started with a bunch of farmers, you
yeah.
know, and you know that we're colonists from Great Britain, from England. So we started as farmers. I said we just started as farmers, and I said we're not perfect. I said, however, you and I can disagree, Joe, and we'll come to some agreement. We'll work it out, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to get mad and blow your house up.
No. No.
No. And I told the gentleman, I said, the problem is you guys are not working together because I said, this place is beautiful. You need to put some hotels and some casinos and some restaurants,
Yeah.
and this place is gorgeous. But some of these worn, torn countries, it's some of these places are actually really beautiful, but because of the culture and some of uh, the beliefs in there, it's just really difficult. But it
Well,
gave
well,
me appreciation for my country, being able
yeah.
to live in a free society.
Well, I always say, I say to people, look, there's not many bad people in the world. It's just that they
Yeah,
move around a lot.
yeah,
So it seems like there's a lot. I mean, genuinely speaking, pretty much people are all right. The majority
yeah.
of people are good.
Yeah, yeah, and that's how but then again, I was fortunate enough to go in the houses and walk
Yeah.
on the streets. And I met beautiful people, wonderful people. I mean, Joe, I had some of the weirdest conversations. I had to explain the income tax system, uh, or how do you buy a house? Because they think everybody in America is loaded with money. I said that's not true. And
Yeah.
then I would play music on my iPod, like I would play like the Elvis Presley
Yeah.
or Jackson 5. It's like the first time and it was true, the first time they ever heard it. And they were like,
Really?
oh, this is, yeah, that's how much they are
Yeah, yeah,
segregated
yeah.
from the rest of the world. And they're like, oh, this is great. And I like rap. I like a little bit of rap music, but some of the Iraqi guys were like, come up, do rap for me, whatever. I'm like, I don't, I'm not very good at rap. And it was just like they just came out of a cave or something. So that's where my heart went out. And then just, because now part of my philosophy now, I take people one at a time, one at a time.
Yeah, and I know we discussed the fact that you were 9 years as a drill sergeant, drill instructor, and contrary to what the films depict, which Full Metal Jacket or any of those sort of
That's one of my
films.
favorites.
Yeah. I've watched it so many times. Uh, so apart from that, the the role of a drill sergeant, and in the UK as well, and training NCOs,
Mhm.
it's much more than just screaming or yelling at someone, isn't it?
Oh yeah, there's a lot to it. I always some of the downsides of it, like when we do like a 15-mile road march and they come back in and we tell them I go into barracks and I got a line of trainees this way, a line of trainees this way, and they're holding I got to check their fingernails, I got
Yeah,
to check their blisters, where they got somebody's been, at least 8 or 10 of them will have blisters on their feet, and I've got to take it the health and welfare. We call it health and welfare.
yeah,
But the emotional side, that the part that they don't really show, because you've got individuals that are black, white, Asian, Latino. And a company is made up of 60 soldiers. So they're from every walk of life. Some are married, some are not married, and now I don't know if it's true for the British forces, but in the American forces, I know the Army, we train male and female together.
yeah.
And
That's a new dynamic, isn't it?
that's a new dynamic. And that was different for me because when I went through, it was all male.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
all. Yeah, same for me.
yeah. So when I became a trainer, I had to learn how to train female soldiers. And that was a challenge. But the thing they don't show you is that some of these individuals, you've got to push them. They come, some of them, they don't think they can do things, and the confidence level is really really low. Uh,
Yeah,
the first 2 weeks is just I crack up laughing because one soldier says they want to go home. They've never been away from home. I remember one night, if I can kind of go into the story, one of my drill sergeant buddies called me. He says, "Hey, one of your soldiers on the second floor, he's having a meltdown." Joe, I went down there and I saw this big guy. He looked like a linebacker
yeah,
for a football team, and he was crying his eyes out. And I started laughing. I thought he was joking because this guy had big arms and he looked like he could beat all of us up.
yeah,
And I'm sitting there and I'm going like, what? I'm looking. He's got to be about 6'7", 6'6", 6'7". I'm looking up at him. I'm 6'2", so I'm looking up at him. I'm like, hey, what's going on? And they're yelling, and he's just having a meltdown. So I had to talk him down. I said, hey
Yeah.
man, we're gonna be okay. And, uh, and he calmed down. He calmed down and stuff like that. And I kind of had to chew on him a little bit, yell at him a little bit, but I got him to calm down. And I tell a lot of them, I said, if you quit now, I said, hey, here's the deal. The military's not going to let you go. And the way it works this way is that you got to go see the commander and the first sergeant. Then you got to see the brigade commander and the sergeant major. Then you have to go meet the battalion commander and the battalion sergeant major. Those are 6 people that you have to meet by the time, and they're going to meet you on their schedule, not yours. I said, by the time you see all 6 of those people, we have graduated. And they're going, hmm. So I said, you do the math. You do the math.
And it's interesting because I know there's an exercise I do with people, and it's about breathing, taking a
Yeah.
deep breath and hold it as long as you can, and they time it.
Yeah.
And usually speaking, I let them do it themselves, right? The next time they do it, I say, right, because I tell them what time they got, and then I say, right, we've got to beat that time. And usually speaking, with a bit of coaching, they
Yeah.
double the amount of time that they hold the breath for.
Right. And it's just the same thing. It's just
Yeah,
the coaching because sometimes people can go further than what they think they can.
yeah,
And that's where you come in as the coach to sit back here because, yeah, in the first 2 weeks of basic training, we tell them, you know nothing. You know nothing.
yeah.
So I'm going to be your mother. I'm going to be your father, and I'm going to tell you everything you need to know, and you will pass it. But the other part of it is the support they get within the unit, where they all kind of cheer each other on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're going to have bad days. They're going to have days where their confidence is low. They don't think they're going to make it. And Joe, I can't tell you how many times it's a beautiful thing when I see a soldier grab the other one, pick him up off the ground, and say, "Hey, you're going to be okay. We're in this together. This
Yeah, yeah,
sucks. This sucks right now, but we're going to get through it."
yeah,
And you know, uh, the funny thing is that when they graduate, they are like this.
yeah,
And it like I tell people, drill sergeants, our eyes, we don't cry, our eyeballs sweat. We sweat.
yeah, 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 yeah. That's
So
right.
yeah, because you get kids run up to you and they're like, "Oh, thank you for not quitting on me." I said, "Listen, soldier, you had this in you all along. We just knocked the dirt off.
Yeah, yeah.
You had this in you. So it's a beautiful thing."
Excellent. So it came this day, joyous, sad, whichever, that you left. How was transitioning from the military for you?
That's a great question. When I finally left the military, I was working for Bank of America here in the United States. It's one of the top banks here in the United States, and I became uh, a project manager, technology and stuff. And I guess it was a little bit hard for me because I think one of the things I would scare my manager because I was so used to briefing my commander. When I had something to do, I would say, "Okay, report back, sir. I did this, and that, and this." Give him all the details, and my manager's like, "Why are you telling me telling me all this?" He says, "You're not in trouble." I said, "It's just the way we are." And or if we had meetings, if our manager said we had a meeting at 10 o'clock, I'm there at 9:45 in the
Yeah,
conference
yeah,
room, and I would get annoyed because I see everybody walking in at 10:01, 10:05, and you still see that today
yeah,
and I see lines civilian behavior. It still kind of irritates me a little bit because there's no sense of urgency. There's no sense of respect. I that just I it just bothers me. But the transition was pretty easy. But I made a self-conscious effort to keep some of my skills, respect, being on time, being productive. And that's one of the things I know is that my managers, they really, I noticed that the corporate world, they love military people because we are productive. You tell a military person to dig a hole, they're going to ask you how low you want it. Just the way
yeah,
we,
yeah.
because
I, and that's
yeah,
interesting because one of the things that I bring up regularly during this podcast is that many of the guys, and I don't know you guys are over the pond, in our UK military, they often think, right, how am I going to use my military skills in Civvy Street? And I don't, I think that often they forget the soft skills and cultural skills that are being drummed into them, and think that
Yeah, the
if they were,
skills.
it's not about firing a mortar or firing a weapon, it's about all the stuff that goes into what allows you to fire the mortar or the weapon or do any of the drill or whatever, isn't it? Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Well, you alluded to it earlier. It's the application going through the process because it's good fertile ground because if a person is trainable and teachable, and I'm living proof of that. And I didn't mention this earlier on in the broadcast, is that I work in information technology. I work in computer science. I don't even have a degree. And
Yeah,
people go, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, "How did you do that?" I said, "Because when my manager said I need somebody, I raised my hand,
yeah,
and I would just go get the manual and go read it." And alluding to what you just said is just that it doesn't matter. Not could you may have somebody loading a gun or loading a truck, and you're not going to use it, but the process of
yeah,
following the process to load that truck, that's good fertile ground to learn something, to learn new skills. And that's why if I had to put a stamp on it from the end of my life, is that because I did my military training, whenever my supervisors would ask me to do something and I disciplined myself to do it, it laid the fertile groundwork for me to go on to learn computer science and to learn project work. And it the
yeah.
discipline, I had to discipline myself. It was not a problem because I'm used to doing it,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
And in a team, I'd much rather have someone who might not have the skill that's honed in 100%, but is willing to learn and put the graft in, rather than someone who knows how to do it, but just doesn't
Yeah.
do it.
Well, it's funny you saying that, Joe, because like I said, I'm working with high schoolers now. And I'm asking high schoolers, okay, some of them are 1 or 2 years away from going out graduating. And
Mm.
I said, okay, what's your plan? And they're going, some of them will give me the generic answer, oh, I'm going to college. And my response to that, Joe, is like, so what?
Yeah.
So what? And they say, and they look at me with a surprised look. I said, I don't mean to, I'm not bursting your bubble, but I'm bringing you down to reality. That's not a guarantee that you're going to be successful. And they said, what do you mean? I said, right now, your teacher's having a hard time getting you to do your assignments in class. How's that going to change when you get to college if you're
Yeah.
still behaving that way? If you're not disciplining yourself to do the work. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking about getting some t-shirts done that say, do the damn work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
the damn work.
Yeah.
Because I told these teenagers, I promise you, I bet my children on it. If you do the work and you follow the process, you will be successful. I guarantee it.
Yeah. And it's like university now in the UK, and probably the same in the US, because I've
Mhm.
spoken to a few veterans who are actually working universities now, and you got to differentiate yourself, because if like 75% of people are going to university now, well then it's like when I was a lad, like you went to university if you were really academic and a bit special, right?
Yeah.
And like the rest of us were vying for jobs by just being good and enthusiastic. And
Yeah.
so you gotta differentiate yourself, haven't you? Just show that you go the extra mile.
Yeah. I mean, but see, those skills are not taught. I truly believe that you have to develop those skills of tenacity. You got to learn how to be able to handle failure. You got to learn how to take opportunities. Like I'll give you an example. When my wife, she was working for a company where she had to deliver greeting cards, and she made a mistake and sent the shipment to the wrong place. And I told her that pretty much that it's okay. She says, what do you mean? I said, the fact that you can contact your manager, tell your manager you made a mistake, speak intelligently to it. Instead of just saying, shrugging your shoulders, going, oh, I don't know, whatever, it's a mistake. That's what upper level management are looking for, intelligent people to speak to it, because it's not about knowing what to do, what's right all the time. It's knowing what to do when things go wrong.
Yeah. And what you're going to do about it.
Yeah, what are you going to do about it? Because I tell you, Joe, I learned this when I first made, before I made Sergeant Major. I would walk into my colonel's office and I give him a problem. I say, "Sir, this is the problem." And I walk out. He says, "Where are you going?" I said, "What are you talking about, sir?" He says, "What is your recommendation to solve this problem?" So I
Mhm.
had to give him 3 COAs. That's called course of action. I had to
Yeah.
give him 3 COAs, and I had to give him a recommendation and maybe a lessons learned plan
Yeah.
so it doesn't happen again. So, and I told them, I said, when I tell young people, when you make a mistake, it's not about, you know, you made the mistake. You want to be able, I said, stand on your own 2 feet, speak to it, and they appreciate that, because sometimes the people go think that these big leaders make these big decisions. No, they don't. They go off
No.
of feedback
Yeah.
from the secondary leaders. They appreciate. They don't know how much they really appreciate that. They don't want people just saying yes,
Yeah.
yes, just not understanding the work. So it is a process
Uh,
that has to be developed.
yeah. What about this then? I've never talked about this before. You don't, when you're having a kid, right? You don't go to the library and get a book on how to bring a child up. Because wouldn't it be great if you could do that, or you had an audio or a video of it?
Yeah.
Uh, and like the one thing I found, going back to what we were chatting about a minute ago, is when my children come to me, well, they're adults now actually, but when they come to me and they say, "Right, I've got a problem, Daddy, can you help me?" I say,
Yeah.
"Well, what have you done to work this out?
Yep. Yep.
How can we sort this?" And then I'd make them think. And I think that the ability, training someone to have the ability and develop the ability to solve problems is probably one of the best things you can teach a child.
Man, it is a great skill, and some places call it root cause analysis, problem solving skills.
Mhm.
Uh, a good friend of mine, he's from India, and their educational system is phenomenal. It's
Yeah.
totally phenomenal. And I was just telling him, and I would get intimidated because I'm like, man, you guys are doing incredible work. However, I found their Achilles heel. I found their Achilles heel,
What's
and
that?
he says, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I noticed that when there's a problem, you like to start from the beginning. You're
Yeah.
not you're not trained to start in the middle."
Ah, right. Okay.
I said, "I get it now." I said, "You as long as it's systematic, and that's okay, but sometimes time will not permit for you to go all the way back to the beginning." I
Hmm.
said, if you know your work, you can start in the middle, you can start almost to the end, you can back up 5, 6, 7 spaces, you can figure it out because you know how it works. And I said, these are the things that are not in the manual. They're not in the
Yeah. Yeah.
manual.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where I said, I would tease him. I said, I'm smarter than you.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can pick it up wherever it is instead of
Right,
going back
right.
to the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, and I told him, I said, technically, you've got it down systematically, but to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it is it's so valuable, you know.
So, like, you're using your skills that you got in the military from being a drill sergeant to being able to nurture the recruits that came in. Now you're working in schools to see starting people who are a bit younger. And from that transition now from being young to being old enough in the military or in civilian street for
Mhm.
training, what what skills do you think that the guys get in the military that maybe civilians don't, and how useful is that in civilian life when they go to an employer?
That's a great question, Joe. One of the skills is very simple, and it goes across all lines of business, all lines of genre, is to remain teachable.
Mhm.
Remain teachable.
Yeah,
You can humble yourself. When my son became an officer, I told him, I said, "Here, I'm going to give you some advice that's going to last you your entire career." He said, "What, Dad?" I said, "You want to go find that old soldier and pick him or her's brain and just pick their brain. They will tell you everything you need to know. And every officer, great officer that I've known in the past will tell you that they will confirm this, is that you have to ask questions. You have to humble yourself and ask questions. I even tell the young people, I even taught my kids when they were young. I tell some of these kids, I say, what do you want to be when I grow up? I want to be a business owner. I want to, do this, or a baseball player or whatever. I said, well, let me give you some advice. Go find that person that's doing the thing that you want to do, and you ask them, how did they get from to where they are today? And I said, trust me, they will talk your ear off. They will talk your ear off.
Yeah.
It's better than college.
Well,
It's better than college.
yeah, and I remember when I was in Germany, my first posting to Osnabrück,
Yeah.
uh, a young 18-year-old, didn't know anything. I just got out of
Yeah.
training, right? So I was a basic soldier, basic engineer.
Yeah.
And talking about old and bold, as we call them, the old guy, we had a corporal, right? And back then, right, you could have people who served 22 years and they'd be a sapper. They'd still be private. But
Uh-huh.
I tell you what, right, and that was because they may not have been the best in camp and they didn't like discipline, and maybe they were a bit naughty every now and again and got in
Right.
a fight. You put them in the field, right? Wow, what they didn't know about combat engineering and soldiering, you could write on the back of a postage stamp. Because if you needed something, you say, right, are we going to get over this? Oh yeah, just do that, bring that in here, boom, done.
Yeah, leadership shows up, because even when I was in a combat zone in 2007, because at the end of my year, I've been shot at several times. I've been blown. My team's been blown up. No, everybody survived, but we've been
Yeah,
blown up
no, that's good. Yeah.
6 or 7 times. But leadership shows up, because when stuff starts happening, it's like those folks that have that propensity for leadership, they know what to do, and it kind of gives the team confidence. You
Yeah.
know, 'cause you don't want to get out there. Like, I give you an example. We were going back. We had trained the Iraqis that day. We're headed back to post, and we're in Baghdad. And we went up over an overpass, and as we made the turn, an IED went off.
Right. Okay.
And I was a gunner on the second truck. We had 3 vehicles. I was on the second truck on the crow's nest.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And I saw the trunk of the car, my buddies in the vehicle in front of me, go up in the air. I'm like, oh my
Oh,
gosh, these guys are dead.
oh,
And we instantly stopped. And Joe, it was like clockwork. There's
oh.
11 of us on the team.
Yeah. All
We
right. Yeah.
we formed the vehicles up. We got in a circle. The gunners, our job is to cover our perimeters.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
has a perimeter. The point I'm making is that there was nobody standing around going like, well, what do I do? And,
No.
what stand and so we were able to, we didn't lose anybody, but we were able to put a strap on that vehicle. We were only about a mile away from the post anyway. So we
Yeah.
were able to strap on it and tow it back into the home base.
Yeah.
But but leadership is important, because people don't, and that's the thing that concerns me today, is I see these leaders that are coming on television, and these people don't have a clue. Even some of these celebrities irritate me.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they come up there and they think they know. They don't even know. I would break them like in the first week.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because that phrase "train hard, fight easy" always comes to mind because we were
Yeah,
just practicing, practice so much. So when it did hit the fan, we were just ready.
muscle memory.
Yeah, and talking of which, I mean, the amount of people, and I know this podcast goes out on LinkedIn, we promote it on it, but the amount of people, right, on LinkedIn who say they're masters of leadership, and you think, how many books have you read, right? So,
Yeah,
and I don't mean that disrespectfully, because I'm sure there are a lot of leaders out there who have done the textbook route, but I think that life experience is a pretty good teacher, because like you, I was never an academic
yeah,
until they said, right, you're in a bomb disposal unit, you need to learn that stuff. I
yeah. I
thought,
mean, yeah. Everybody can say nice little phrases and sayings and everything, but leadership, it really shows its value when it's important.
Yeah.
Because people are really looking for leadership, and especially the generations that are, uh, like you said, what's my transition? Well, I feel also a calling to nurture the next generation of leaders.
Mm.
The next generation that's coming up. I tell a lot of these young people, I said, hey, I'm done. I've done all my stuff. I've swam my rivers. I've slayed my dragons. I
Yeah.
said, now I'm passing it on to you. I said, that's just how I pay it forward.
Yeah.
So I tell them, I said, you want to pay me back? You want to pay me back for my time? Embrace it and then pass it on to the next person.
Yeah.
Too
And,
easy.
yeah. And during your time and career, you would have had various coaches and mentors. How important do you think it is to get yourself a great coach and mentor?
Well, one of the things I learned from the officer corps, and I think the British Army does it well. One of the things I like what the officers do is that they use a term called they have a mentor system within the officer corps. My son is an officer, and I notice that every officer will have a mentor for their career, and it's got to be someone that's maybe a rank above, a little bit above than who they are. And I think that I've watched how that played out through my whole military career, where I've kind of instinctively done that too. Is I've had people and a mentor. I don't want to make this clear that your listeners understand it. A mentor is not somebody that agrees with you, that thinks you're wonderful. It's going to be the person that's going to not afraid to hurt your feelings. They want it to. I've got people in my life, yeah, that will not afraid to sit there and say, "Hey, Sergeant Roy, you're off base on this," and they explain it to me, and they don't have to agree with everything I say, but they challenge me,
Mm.
and because you're not going to get everything, you're just not going to get everything, but to have a mentor, they have a coach. That's why I tell people, I say, I crack up laughing when you see the Olympics, when you see Bella Caroli, the famous coach of he was of the Romanian gymnastic team, a
Yeah,
Russian,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and now he coaches for the United States. But you don't see him on the even bars. He's not out there flipping around. He's sitting there, and I said, when those girls come off the bars, they run instantly to him, and they're listening, and he's telling them, and he's coaching them, and it's very, very vital to have a mentor, to
Yeah.
have a coach, and because people were like, how do I know? Well, the end result, what we call the end state, that coach is to make you better. That coach is to challenge you at every level. And that's what you want. That's what you want, to be able to get the results that you want to achieve. But
And
if you have
talk,
a coach, yeah, go ahead.
and if you have a coach, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, if you have a coach that's going to, say, and even as when I became my first 2 years of being a drill sergeant, I had to learn that. It's funny you brought that up because, when we switched to training female soldiers, that was kind of hard for me at first because my father instincts would kick in. Like I'd be out there, give you
yeah,
an example, we doing a road march and I see this female soldier, she's like 5'2". And she's having to go in the road march standing next to soldiers that are 6 feet, 6'2", and she's got to carry the same amount of weight. She's got to carry 60 pounds on her back. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, wow, and my heart just goes out for her. But I have to, for her success, I have to let her push through, you know. And I would tell my male soldiers when she would fall, I said, don't pick her up, leave her alone.
yeah.
She's got to do that, and they do that. And believe it or not, Joe, my females perform very well in basic training.
Well, a few years ago, we had the first female pass P company, which is the parachute test for the
Yeah,
parachute
I heard
regiment.
that. Yeah,
And I remember back, excuse me, in the 80s, well, I was sitting in the NAFI bar, which is like your PX, I think,
yeah.
and uh, and we were in a camp, right, and it was mixed, right. We had 17 squadron. They were females in there, and we were 2-4 field squadron, and it was a place where people would come in to learn combat engineering,
Yeah,
right, and we'd teach them
yeah,
about all the stuff, mine warfare, bridge building, water points, all that sort of stuff. And we're in an offie, and I'm just watching. I'm just because I like people watching, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the bar, and these two Women's Royal Army Corps girls, and I know them, right? And these guys come in who've been posted. They're on a course for a couple of weeks, and they start chatting them up, I suppose. But then they started to get a little bit not nasty, but a bit funny. And I just
Yeah.
thought, I know this is going to end. And I just went, when I went to the bar, I said, fellas, you want to leave them alone? I'll tell you. And they said, oh, get lost. Anyway, the next thing, something happened, and I was just sipping quietly my drink, and she lamped him. Whoa, did she laid him out on? And I said, I told you guys,
Yeah.
you don't mess about with them. So yeah, I think that there are a lot of ladies out there that can do the job, and you got to raise your hat to them.
Yeah, they can do something, and I don't believe they're equal physically, but they can still serve in some capacity, and I wouldn't make it a rule, but I'm real proud of, like, when I was a drill, females are very detailed oriented, so when we have
Yeah.
qualification and rifle day, about 8 out of 10 times my females will outshoot the males.
Oh wow, that's an
Yeah,
interesting. Huh?
and I would have some big guy from Kansas or the country. She shot bear or something, and this little itty bitty lady is and I'm teaching them fundamentals of rifle marksmanship, and she's catching it.
Yeah,
She's paying
yeah,
attention,
yeah.
and she knocks them down, man. She knocks the targets down, man. And I'm just cracking up laughing. So it's all fun. It's all part of the process.
So, we're coming to the end of our chat today, and I've really enjoyed it. I know we could carry on for hours. Uh, you know, if you're chatting to someone who maybe is leaving the military or has left the military, is having a bad day, or maybe someone who's not in the military, supports the military, likes the way it goes, what's the one big tip you would give to someone, a valuable tip, just to help them over the line sometimes?
Well, I would just give the advice that I've given myself. It doesn't last forever. It's only for a season.
Mm,
And when you have seasons when you're challenged, it's either going to make you better or it's going to make you worse. So the thing is that you got to get the idea in your mind. This is only for a season. And then you
yeah.
have to ask yourself, what can I get out of this? This is an opportunity for me to grow. Is this an opportunity for me to be to step up to the plate? It's always an opportunity. Don't see it as a negative. And the thing is that fear, sometimes people, when you have fear, it's usually of the unknowns. Don't go off what the unknowns are. Go off what you know. And people say, well, all I know is my name. Well, good. You know your name. That's good. We can work with that. So don't worry about the unknowns. Go off on what you know. You're only accountable for what you know. But then again, at the same time, don't be afraid to grow. Don't be afraid to take in more knowledge. And sometimes, and finally, the last thing is that don't be afraid to grow, because sometimes you got to leave those old relationships away. Sometimes you can't take everybody with you. And this is what I taught my son. You can't take everybody with you. If you have you're driven to get more knowledge or get more training, go for it. But you can't take everybody with you. And that's okay.
Mm,
Well, what if I'm by myself? When you get new friends, you'll get new friends. It's just that easy. But you can't take everybody with you. Not everybody's not going to go where you're going. And that's
no.
okay.
Mm. Thank you. And what does the future hold for you now, Roy?
Well, and right now I'm still married to my wife of 42 years, the commander. We have six children. I got to get those guys in shape. And right now, I said I'm a professional speaker, and I'm traveling. I'm trying not to get super busy because my wife, I promised her I would get super busy, but I'm going around. And thanks for people like yourself, Joe, that gives me the opportunity to come on their platforms, and I can talk about this all day. I'm very passionate about it, And so now I'm just kind of going around. I've got some invitations. I got a possible invitation going down to Atlanta to speak to a university of officers of young military officers down there, and just to kind of just do this, like you said earlier, retirement means different things for different people. So I make sure I don't get too lazy, man, to sit there and just do something. And I have a saying: I'm gonna drive it till the wheels fall off.
Yeah. Good. And congratulations on 42 years married. That's fantastic. And say hello to your commander-in-chief from me.
Yeah, that's right. That's
please.
it. That's it.
So
You gotta make her happy.
how can people get in touch with you? And they want to touch base?
Great. I have a website out there. It's called Speak, SPEAK, Sergeant Roy, SGT Roy. It's all one word, Speak, SergeantRoy.com. And you'll find all my credentials out there. You see, this broadcast will be definitely out there if they want to see it again. And all my credentials are out there. My contacts out there. I try to be informative. You can reach me and book some time with me. I'd be more than glad to speak with you. Be more than glad. It's and everything's right there. All my Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff is out there. All the links are out there, so you can reach me on social media.
Well, listen, thank you for your service. Thank you for your time today, sharing your time with me on the podcast. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
JoeTeams.com is a resource I've created to fulfill my mission to help 1 million veterans and business entrepreneurs like you achieve the goals, dreams, and aspirations they deserve. JoeTeams.com is jam-packed full of valuable resources specifically designed to help you on your journey to success. Visit JoeTeams.com now to find out how you can join and start your journey to success immediately. That's JoeTeams.com, JoeTeams, JoeTeams.com. And until we meet again, have a brilliant day.